Hey, what's up guys, it is RB Hardware, and in today's video I'm gonna show you guys how to build the ultimate gaming PC ready for Battlefield 2042. And in today's video I'm gonna show you guys exactly how to build this PC, all the PC component choices and why I selected them. And in total I've tested 28 games in 1080p, 1440p and 4K resolution, including Battlefield 2042 of course. We're also gonna look at ray tracing and CPU benchmarks. I'm gonna try and give you guys everything you need to know before building this computer. Before we start building the PC, let's take a quick look at the system requirement and recommendation running Battlefield 2042. I want you guys to have in mind that the gameplay we're about to dive into later is actually captured from the open beta, so there is a chance we're gonna see framerate improvements when the game fully launches on November 19th. Anyway, let's jump over to EA.com and let's first take a look at the system requirement. And as we can see, you need a 6-core 3rd-gen Ryzen 5 3600 or an Intel equivalent Core i5 6600K. For memory, we're gonna need at least 8, as well as a DX12 compatible 4GB 1050 Ti or RX 560. Pretty modest specs if you ask me. Now jumping over to the recommended requirement, on the other hand, we can see that you need 16 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs of VRAM and an 8-core processor. And on top of that, we see that both GPUs here are ray tracing ready, and it shouldn't come as a surprise as we know that Battlefield 2042 will be DXR compatible. But this should tell us that both these GPUs should be powerful enough to run the game with ray tracing turned on. Now with the PC build today, my idea here is to try and hit the sweet spot in terms of price and performance, and so with this PC I'm mainly targeting 1440p and 4K gaming, but you're certainly not going to be put down by the frame rate in 1080p at the end of the day. Now for the latest and best pricing for each PC part guys, have a look in the description where you find every item listed. So with the hardware requirement in mind, let's take a look at our PC build. So for the processor, I've gone for the $199 6-core Ryzen 5 3600. One of the best budget 6-core gaming processors on the market. And as we can see guys, the 3600 delivers high frame rate and stutter-free gameplay in any game. Now in order to unleash the full potential of the 3600, which is going to be important for demanding games like Battlefield 2042, it is important to pair up the CPU with a fast RAM kit. But yeah, more on that in a second. Now looking at this chart here, we see that the 3600 is trading blows with the similarly priced 1100 400F. Since the 3600 comes with a better cooler, it is the best budget pick if you ask me. For the motherboard, I've gone for GB B450M, which is a fantastic bang for the buck motherboard for Ryzen and a perfect entry to the world of PC gaming. Now thanks to decent heatsinks and VRMs, can support even the most recent 6-core Ryzen 5000 CPU through a BIOS update. So let's open up our CPU box and install our processor. By now you guys probably seen this a couple of times before, but you basically want to pair up the triangle located at the lower left side corner of the CPU with the triangle we find at the lower left side corner of the motherboard socket. Pull back the retention arm, line up the triangles and simply drop the CPU, and that is basically it. We're gonna use the cooler that comes included with our CPU, and in terms of temperatures, we see that the cooler is efficient enough and has no problem keeping our CPU from reaching any high, nasty, potential thermal throttling numbers. Make sure that each spring screw lines up with the corresponding screw holes on the back plate. Thermal paste comes included, and so you really don't have to worry about that. Secure the cooler in a pattern something like so. Don't forget the CPU fan header. And if you're getting any value out of this video guys, please smash the like button, subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so that you know exactly when new content is released. Next up then, we're gonna move on to system RAM. And here it is important that we select the fast kit to utilize the CPU's full potential. Now as we can see, the difference between a 2133 and a 3200 MHz kit is quite significant. And so for a game like Battlefield 2042, who does like a fast CPU, we want to pick up a kit with a speed of 3200 to 3600 MHz marked CL16. These are linked up down below for you guys. Pull back the clips for the second and the fourth DIMM slot, and then it's just a matter of sliding both sticks into place, and that's it. Now before we go ahead and take a look at our case choice, let's first install our storage, and Samsung got us covered here with their 980 SSD. I don't have the 980 at the studio currently. You do however find the right one at the best price linked up down below. So once this is done, we can finally go ahead and jump over to the case. This is the Lian Li Longcool 215, perhaps one of the best budget high airflow cases on the market. Now Lian Li has done a terrific job here finding the sweet spot between price, quality and aesthetic. And Lian Li includes not just one, not two, but 3 fans in total, 2 at the front, and we find the third one at the rear. All 3 fans are pre-installed to a fan and an RGB controller, and all we basically need to do in order to get this up and running is a single SATA power connector from the power supply. Anyway, let's go ahead and get rid of the side panel. Once done, before we go ahead and pop in the motherboard, we want to go ahead and install the motherboard IO shield. Now you want to make sure guys that these circular holes are located at the bottom. And then we can just simply slide the motherboard into place and secure it, and there are 6 screw holes here in total. Grab the power supply, install it with the fan facing downwards and secure it, and a step-by-step cable installment guide is linked up down below. Now once we got all cables hooked up to the motherboard, we can finally take a look at our GPU choice. This is the Radeon RX 6700 XT, based on AMD's latest Navi 22 and RDNA 2 architecture with support for DX12 Ultimate and ray tracing. Now the 6700 XT mainly targets 1440p gaming, but thanks to 12 gigs of VRAM it can do 4K pretty alright. Having a look at some Battlefield 2042 open beta gameplay, we can see that the 6700 XT handles the game quite nicely, there is no doubt about it. All RDNA 2 based GPUs from AMD is DX12 Ultimate compatible. What this means is that they do support ray tracing. It is important to have in mind though guys that Nvidia does have the upper hand in this department, and if you plan on running games like Battlefield 2042 with ray tracing, I do actually recommend having a look at the RTX 3060 or the 3070, as you're going to most likely see higher frame rate with these GPUs. Anyway, spec wise again, because the 6700 comes with 12 gigs of RAM, you're gonna be able to play at very high resolutions. Let's take a look at some Battlefield 2042 open beta gameplay. At 1440p medium, we're looking at around 100 FPS on average, whereas at ultra settings, we're looking at around 76 FPS. Moving to 4K medium settings, you're looking at around 60 FPS. And again guys, this is gameplay from the open beta, and I do think it is important to have in mind because we are most likely going to see even higher numbers than this once the final game launches, thanks to optimizations and driver updates. Something that we also need to talk about is the never-ending GPU shortage, and it is unfortunate, but it doesn't seem like this is over quite yet. Right now it does seem like there is a bigger demand for Nvidia's graphics cards at the moment, and that should make the 6700 XT easier to find. Now I do want you guys to have in mind that the 6700 XT launched at an MSRP of $479, and I'm going to link up the best deal I can find for you guys down in the description. If you can't seem to find the 6700 XT under around $600. I recommend having a look at the used market, or maybe look for something like the 1650 Super or perhaps the 1660, and use this as a sort of a stopgap until prices are back to normal again. But I want you guys to keep in mind that these GPUs are meant for 1080p gaming. Anyway, with that said, if we take a look at the gaming benchmarks running a wide range of some of today's most popular games, starting off with 1080p or Full HD, here we can see that you can max out pretty much any game out there and enjoy silky smooth gameplay. At 1440p, you can definitely go for high settings for pretty much any game out there, and for 4K resolution, medium is where you wanna put your target at. Now here is what the final part list is looking like, guys, and you find all items linked up down below. Now this video took a lot of time to complete. If you like what I'm doing, please leave a like or a dislike, and make sure to subscribe to never miss any of my future gaming PC builds. Thank you guys so much for watching this video.